It's good to see so many familiar faces. It's good to be in Lisbon, and it's good to have you all here. I think we are getting closer to the end of the event, unfortunately, but I think it is for a good thing. So, first of all, do you know what's this? And yes, I know that you will talk and nobody will hear. Yeah, it's a notebook, but it's the resilience. It's my resilience for this presentation. Resilience for presentations. If anything fails, I'll have it here, okay? And that's what I'm going to tell you about in this presentation is resilience on networks, on telecommunication networks. So, from blackout to awareness, it comes from a recent blackout. I don't know if anyone heard about it. Small impact, of course. So when preparing to this presentation, I was just thinking, how can we show how dependent we are on the digital services, on our telephones, on the apps? And so I started thinking, well, am I dependent or not? And started to see. So let's see what were the apps that I used this week when I went to London. So, okay, here we are. Yeah, I had to have a visa. If you don't know, now we have ETA visa to enter the UK. It's a nice source of revenue for the UK government. It only costs £15, and in 1 minute you are able to enter the UK. So, nice app. It will read your passport as well. Very interesting. Then I had to do the check-in for my flight, TAP flight. A bit late, of course. You know how Portuguese are. But I needed to prepare the presentation that I was going to do in London. So, first of all, presentation was in Portuguese. I asked Perplexity, can you please translate it to business English? It was great, I can tell you. I'm always in awe with AI, and this is very small things on AI currently, but this is what I use. So I arrived London, Heathrow Express app, let's buy the ticket, let's go to central London, go to the hotel, have a sleep. Next morning, I woke up with the alarm clock playing a random music from my choice on Apple Music, okay? So there's the joke. When we wake up, what do you do first? Do you go to the bathroom or do you see your phone? Yes, I watch my phone and I see some news. Go see some news on Financial Times, on The Guardian, etc., Sapo. And then, Siri, what's the weather for today? What shall I wear to the venue? Google Maps, check the roads. And then, during breakfast, I needed to check my stocks. Is it going well or not? Shall I buy some copper mining stocks because data centers are developing so much? Time for Duolingo. Je parle le français. Je m'appelle Georges. Duolingo, learning French during breakfast. Then Uber to the venue, going to the BT Tower, checking some social media. And then I start and I get my presentation from the server from the cloud on Microsoft. Check presentation, put it on the screen, do it on my browser. And when I'm just about to start the presentation, I get a call from my kid. Daddy, I want to go have lunch with my friends. I don't have money. Can you please put me some money on my bank account? So you use Revolut as well. Let's go. Then what's the status on the sales on my team? Let's see. Let's check. Is everything going right? Time to go back to the hotel, tired. Just request a meal and watch some Netflix. So this is how dependent I am. And this is how dependent I think we all are, or at least we are more and more from the digital services. But as we grow dependent and more dependent on these digital services, any tiny disruption to this type of services may turn into a huge turmoil, and it may even shut down an entire economy. So if we think, and this is just to give you a little hint, if we think of the cable cuts on Western Africa, nobody would believe that 350 kilometers apart from West African shore, there would be still a huge canyon with a rolling of debris coming from the shore, coming from the Congo River, being able to, 350 kilometers apart from the shore, being able to cut 3 cables in sequence. Probably, as well, nobody would believe that in Europe there would be a huge blackout, a huge power failure that would not only impact Spain, but since Portugal decided to acquire power from Spain during that specific period, having a total impact on the power on the Portuguese side. And again, we think, okay, these are disasters that happen, but suddenly we look into what the largest players are doing and their focus on resilience and security, and we see that the AWS outage had a huge impact. So a small thing like DNS, like a server to manage the domain names, it went down in one of the busiest data center areas in the world, in Washington, and a huge number of services went down with it. So we are really exposed to these threats, and more the impacts are enormous on our daily lives. And so we can look into the nature of this type of incident. And this is a study that was held by Copenhagen Economics for Connect Europe, former Ethno. And it is focused on European telco operators. And you can see that the highest number of failures come from system failures, but also third-party failures. And on the third-party failures, you can see that the increase is really steep. Third-party failures, we are talking about the clouds. For example, AWS would be, the outage on the AWS would be considered as a third-party failure on these numbers. And this was in 2025, it is not yet accounted for. But also, you can see a rise in natural disasters, but also on malicious actions. But what I want to say is that when we look into the type of incidents that we are having, we are talking in the public opinion more and more about malicious actions. But when we look into the numbers, it's not exactly like that. And we should, all of us, keep in mind these numbers. So, what are the impacts when a network fails? I'll tell you about the 2 of the examples I told you we talked about earlier, okay? Let's think about the Iberian blackout. So, no power at all. What happened? Offices without generators, without diesel generators, they lost every kind of power. So every fixed network on offices and at our homes went down immediately. No connection whatsoever over fixed networks immediately. And then mobile networks, step by step, started losing autonomy, and those networks started went down. So completely disconnection of the telecommunication grid, let's say. No payments, no ability to check, to work, because we started working all on the cloud. All the other services, you can imagine, traffic lights going down, traffic jams everywhere, data centers with real problems impacting a lot of additional services. So the toll is real high. And the same goes to the AWS outage. Snapchat went down. Lloyd Bank, a huge number of services on Lloyd Bank went down as well. On the London Stock Exchange, another huge impact. So the number of services now supported on the clouds of 3 players is enormous. And so this is also something that we should take into account. We have this amount of impact because we are focusing all in 3 major players in terms of cloud services. So now, we need to know what to do. Most of our networks are already doing it, but it's important for us to keep the focus on these things and to take into account that we will continue to need the need for investment in all of this. So, 2 approaches, one security and the other resilience. Security on one side, so that we can prevent potential harms to our network. Resilience on the other, so we can be able to act after the event happens. And this is very important, namely, on the resilience side, to look into redundant infrastructure. Not only redundant, but diversified in terms of geographically speaking. But also redundant network architecture. So we are talking about diverse routes, POPs on different cities, on different geographies, with different providers. And of course, to have disaster recovery and management crisis plans. And this means an alignment with public authorities that manage the impacts nationwide, let's say. Of course, 24/7 incident response is also something to take into account. And one thing that is becoming more and more important is to have, let's say, a common ground between network providers, network operators, to be able to share information between each other and to be able to act as one when these kinds of events happen. So, with all of this, one thing comes to our mind immediately. Resilience comes at a cost. So, when we look into traditional operators and to other network providers, margins are coming down. It's inevitable. Over-the-tops they have the added value on most of the solutions. So, for networks, it's becoming more and more difficult to justify the amount of capex for a single project. So when we talk about on a single project to add additional resilience and security, we are talking about even more capex. And so this is quite something that can put us on a place that we say, I don't have enough money, or I cannot justify a business plan with so much investment, so I'll reduce the resilience. And you've seen the impacts. So this is one of the topics that is of the most importance to be solved. Again, we talk about these impacts, but we have another ones, which are, for example, regulation. Regulation comes at the nation size, let's say, but also at the regional size. We look into Europe's regulation and how it will combine with nationwide regulation. And when we talk about, namely, NIS 2, NIS 2, and DORA, how they interact with each other, are they overlapping or not? And it seems they are overlapping. So we need to take into account that the regulation is also something that puts us on the back foot. And there are the operational dependencies. We cannot control if a cloud provider, if an over-the-top, will be as resilient as our network. We cannot control that. But those services, their services, are the services that are being deployed or used by the end customers. And so the end customer, even if there is a network that is spectacular in terms of resiliency, in terms of operation, there is always the possible failure of a cloud provider, for example, as we've seen, or from an energy company. And both of them, we have seen previously what the toll it can bring. So to finalize as well, here on what is holding us back, I believe that training is also something, and this was also something that was noted on the Connect Europe study. We need more people into our industry, and we need them to have more training and new training to adapt to the new circumstances. And I would say, with a particular focus on cybersecurity. So it's time for us to prepare the action, or to act as an industry. And when we see here shared responsibility, this is not just something that is a nice thing to put on a presentation. This is what we need to take into account on our industry. We cannot do it by ourselves, either each of us working by ourselves. We need to do it as a whole, and we need to take this responsibility together, aligned with regulators and with policymakers. So industry collaboration is something that we need to improve. We need to continue to have, but we need to improve it. And we need to take the resilience of our networks as a strategic point on our companies. It needs to be looked into as something that is strategic for the companies to continue to work. But the policy alignment is something that is probably as important as the first two. We need to be more close to the public authorities, to the policymakers, to the regulators, and to be able to share what is our point of view on the way the regulation is going, and on the way we can work together so we can produce something that is, let's say, less complex. We need simplicity to work. And then I would say that this type of policies needs to bring as well something that at the regional level or at the nation level would be looked into as an investment support. And it's something that is so important to have that it should be looked into by the governments as a cost saving for the total economy and not an investment, an additional investment or an additional cost, let's say, to each of the governments. The impact of having the networks down, of having no services, is so big that it should be seen, this investment support should be seen as a cost saving and not as an additional cost to an economy. And of course, as I said before, the skills for the future. We need to be prepared. We need to train people in newer skills to adapt to this current circumstances and to the future circumstances. So, having said that, and just to finalize my presentation, I wanted to share with you as well what we at MEO are doing currently. So for us, the way we have designed our international network is in a way to have no single point of failures. To have different providers working with us, have different colocation spots and different services in each of our POPs. To have resilience on the infrastructure that we use, not only on terrestrial, but also on satellite and subsea. The ability to have routes on a country like Portugal that are not just going by land, but to use the sea, to use subsea to have the routes in, it adds additional resilience, and it's mandatory for a country like Portugal. On the infrastructure side, obviously, we talk about, every one of us talks about having N+1 configurations on the energy side, having N+1 configurations on HVAC side. This is the minimum that we can guarantee on critical infrastructure. But we need also to take into account that we need diversity and redundancy on those same infrastructures. And this comes with the announcement that we have just made about the cable landing stations in the north of the country. It is to have diversity on this kind of infrastructure. And finally, of course, for us to have business continuity management certification, it shows where we stand in terms of internal processes, in terms of the ability to solve a management crisis, on the ability to have, of course, supervision and monitoring of all our assets on the network, and to be able to continue to work after a disaster occur or a threat, let's say. This was something that, in addition to our investment in the multiple mobile sites that we own all across the country, to have more autonomy in each of these sites, this was something that helped us go through the blackout in the Iberia on a better way. So, I hope it has been, well, I have had a little value to all of us, to all of you in this case. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you around.